Hello everyone, welcome to the Sleeping Times channel. Today, we bring you a story that will transport you directly to a time when night truly began, when the sun set, where you will discover how our ancestors created an entire civilization that flourished in the darkness. Imagine a world where every candle flame was as precious as a diamond, where families gathered not by choice, but by necessity, forging bonds that lasted for entire generations, where darkness was not an obstacle, but an invitation to discover completely different ways of living, working, and connecting. What if I told you that before electricity, people didn't just survive in the darkness, but created moments of magic, art, and intimacy that our era of abundant light has forever lost? Can you imagine what it would be like to navigate by the stars, socialize by candlelight, or work when only the moon illuminated the world? Discover how humanity transformed the limitations of night into opportunities to create a richer, more connected, and truly human life. See, if you enjoy stories that move you, surprise you, and make you think about how we live today, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and hit the notification bell so you never miss anything. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. And tell me, have you ever experienced spending an entire night just by candlelight? And remember, every week we bring new adventures and incredible characters waiting to inspire you. Are you ready to embark on this journey through the nights of the past? Then make yourself comfortable. Turn off the lights if you want a more immersive experience, and get ready to discover how our ancestors transformed darkness into light. The sun slowly bid farewell on the horizon, painting the sky with golden hues that gradually transformed into deep purple. It was the most anticipated moment of the day for many, when nature whispered that it was time for a new journey to begin. Twilight was not just a transition, it was a daily ritual that connected people to the Earth's ancestral rhythms. In small villages and towns, the first windows began to glow with the timid light of candles. One by one, like earthly stars, they emerged, creating a constellation of human warmth. The night air carried the soft scent of beeswax, mixed with the smoke from fireplaces that were beginning to be lit. Families gathered around wooden tables, where the golden candlelight danced softly over beloved faces. It was a time to share not only the meal, but also the day's stories, plans for tomorrow, and the dreams that dwelled in their hearts. The approaching darkness was not feared, but welcomed as an old friend. Church bells echoed across the landscape, marking not only the hours but also the sacred moments of transition. Each chime reverberated through the cobblestone streets, reminding everyone that the night brought with it its own blessings and opportunities. It was a gentle invitation to slow down and find peace in simplicity. In the taverns, the first songs began to be sung, voices uniting in melodies that warmed hearts as much as wine warmed bodies. Music flowed naturally, like a river of joy that connected strangers and transformed the night into a celebration of shared life. Artisans carefully put away their tools, knowing that the day's work was done, but that the night brought other forms of creation. It was a time for storytelling, for teaching children ancestral traditions, for keeping alive the flame of wisdom passed down from generation to generation. Children ran through the streets still illuminated by the day's last breath, their laughter echoing like celestial music. They knew it would soon be time to go inside, but these last moments of freedom were precious, like small treasures kept in memory. Merchants closed their doors with a sigh of satisfaction, knowing they had completed another day of honest work. But night didn't just mean rest. It also meant the opportunity to connect with family, with neighbors, with the community that gave meaning to life. Stars began to appear timidly in the darkening sky, like diamonds set in black velvet. Each one was a promise that the night would be gentle, that tomorrow would arrive with new possibilities, that life would continue its eternal cycle of renewal and hope. And so, as darkness gently embraced the earth, people prepared for a different journey, A journey through the night, where every moment would be lived with the special intensity that only the limited light of candles could provide. The art of creating light was one of the most precious skills of the era. In every home, experienced hands knew exactly how to mold the wax, how to cut the wick to the right length, how to make a simple candle transform into a source of warmth and comfort. It was knowledge passed down from mother to daughter, from father to son, like a cherished family treasure. The workshops of candlemakers exuded a sweet and comforting aroma. Beeswax melted slowly in large cauldrons, creating an almost magical atmosphere where light and scent mingled in perfect harmony. The artisans worked with precise, meditative movements, knowing that every candle created would bring light and hope to a home. In simpler homes, whale oil or olive oil lamps softly crackled, their flames small but steady. The sound was almost imperceptible, a gentle whisper that accompanied nightly conversations like background music. The golden light danced on the walls, creating shadows that seemed to tell their own stories. The street lamps were lit one by dedicated lamplighters, men who knew every corner, every cobblestone. They walked with lanterns in hand, climbing wooden ladders to reach each lamp, transforming dark streets into illuminated paths of hope. It was a job that required not only skill, but also a deep love for the community. Maintaining the light was a daily ritual that united families. Children learned early on to trim wicks, clean lamp glasses, and calculate how much oil would be needed for the night. It was a practical education that taught responsibility and care, values that extended far beyond simple illumination. On stormy nights, when the wind threatened to extinguish the flames, the whole family mobilized to protect the light. Glass covers were placed around candles, doors were carefully closed, and everyone worked together to keep the home lit. It was in these moments that the importance of light became most evident. It was not just brightness, but security and unity. Oil and wax merchants were respected figures in the community. They traveled from village to village, carrying not only their products but also news from distant places. Their wagons were eagerly awaited, as they brought the essential materials to keep nightlife running smoothly and comfortably. The quality of light varied according to each family's possessions. While the more affluent could afford beeswax candles, which burned with a clear flame and a soft scent, simpler folk used tallow candles, which smoked a bit more but still fulfilled their role of lovingly illuminating homes. In churches and monasteries, special candles were lit for nightly prayers. These sacred flames held a special meaning. They represented the divine light that never extinguished, the hope that remained lit even in the darkest hours. The golden reflection on the stone walls created an atmosphere of profound peace and contemplation. And so, night after night, millions of small flames danced in harmony, creating a silent symphony of light and warmth. Each one was a testament to human ingenuity, the ability to transform simple materials into sources of comfort and beauty that made darkness not an obstacle, but an opportunity to create moments of intimacy and connection. When darkness completely embraced the outside world, the interior of homes transformed into sanctuaries of warmth and activity. The fireplace became the pulsating heart of the house, radiating not only light and heat but also serving as a gathering point for the entire family. The gentle crackle of burning wood created a comforting soundtrack that accompanied all nocturnal activities. Women sat near the windows, using the candlelight to continue their sewing and embroidery. Their skilled hands moved with precision, creating pieces that were not just functional, but true works of art. The soft rhythm of needles piercing fabric mingled with low conversations and discreet laughter, creating an atmosphere of serene productivity. In the kitchen, even after dinner, work continued under the golden light of lamps. It was time to prepare bread for the next day, to preserve food, to organize provisions. The aroma of dried herbs and spices hung in the air, mixing with the comforting smell of burning wood and creating an olfactory symphony that defined the concept of home. Men often dedicated themselves to small repairs and manual tasks that required concentration. Near the fire, they mended tools, worked on small carpentry projects, or simply sharpened knives and other utensils. It was a time of active meditation, where hands worked while the mind found peace in the repetition of movements. Children gathered in a circle around the elders, eager for the stories that were only told when night fell. It was the magical moment when ancestral legends came alive through words, when heroes and princesses danced in the childish imagination, illuminated only by the flickering light of the flames. Education happened naturally in these intimate moments. Fathers taught their children about the constellations visible through the windows. Mothers passed on recipes and domestic knowledge. Grandmothers shared wisdom accumulated over decades. It was a school without walls, where learning flowed like a gentle, constant river. Board games and cards gained a special life by candlelight. The dancing shadows on the pieces created an almost mystical atmosphere, transforming simple entertainments into family rituals full of meaning. Low laughter and exclamations of surprise punctuated the games, creating memories that would last forever. Music was a constant companion of family nights. Simple instruments like flutes, guitars, and harmonicas filled the air with soft melodies that calmed hearts and prepared minds for rest. Lullabies were sung with affectionate voices, creating a gentle bridge between wakefulness and sleep. Nightly prayers united the family in moments of gratitude and reflection. Kneeling near the fireplace, everyone gave thanks for the day's blessings and asked for protection for the approaching night. It was a ritual that strengthened not only faith, but also family bonds, creating a sense of security and belonging. And so, each home became a small universe of activities and affections, where the limitation of artificial light was not seen as a restriction, but as an opportunity to create intimacy and connection. The domestic night was a sacred time, where the family gathered not only physically, but also spiritually, strengthening the bonds that made life truly meaningful. Taverns transformed into true theatres of social life when night fell. The golden light of candles and lamps created an intimate atmosphere where strangers became friends and stories were shared like precious treasures. The aroma of mulled wine and spices hung in the air, mingling with the sound of lively conversations and genuine laughter that echoed through the wooden walls. Traveling minstrels and musicians found their natural stage in these welcoming environments. With simple but melodious instruments, they wove musical narratives that transported listeners to distant lands and heroic eras. Each song was a journey, each melody a bridge between the everyday and the extraordinary, creating moments of pure magic that warmed hearts more than any fireplace. Community festivities gained a special charm under the cloak of night. Colourful lanterns were hung among the trees, creating an artificial sky of dancing lights that rivaled the beauty of the true stars. Entire families gathered in central squares, sharing food, music, and joy in celebrations that strengthened community bonds. Night markets offered a unique sensory experience. Merchants illuminated their stalls with torches and lamps, creating small oases of light where exotic products shone like jewels. The scent of spices mingled with the aroma of fresh fruits and freshly baked bread, while voices called out to customers in a commercial symphony that lasted late into the night. Folk dances gained an almost mystical dimension in the light of bonfires. Circles of people formed spontaneously, moving to the rhythm of drums and flutes in choreographies that seemed to connect the dancers directly with the primal forces of nature. It was a moment of freedom and expression that transcended social barriers and united hearts in pure joy. Traveling theatres set up their improvised stages in squares and courtyards, using torches to illuminate performances that blended drama, comedy, and music. Masked actors told epic stories with exaggerated gestures and powerful voices that echoed in the night, creating spectacles that remained etched in the audience's memory for years. Gatherings in private homes were special events that strengthened friendships and forged new connections. Halls illuminated by dozens of candles welcomed guests for soirees, where poetry, music, and intelligent conversations flowed like fine wine. It was at these gatherings that ideas were born, romances blossomed, and culture was perpetuated through generations. Nighttime religious festivals created atmospheres of deep spirituality. Processions illuminated by thousands of candles snaked through the streets, creating rivers of light that seemed to connect the earth to the sky. Sacred chants echoed through the ancient stones as worshippers walked in prayer, united by faith and the transcendent beauty of the moment. Seasonal celebrations marked the natural rhythms of community life. Midsummer bonfires lit up summer nights, while special lanterns celebrated autumn harvests. Each season brought its own luminous traditions, creating a calendar of joy that gave meaning and continuity to social life. And so, darkness became not an obstacle, but an invitation to create special moments of human connection. Every gathering, every celebration, every moment shared by candlelight and bonfires transformed into a precious memory, a golden thread in the tapestry of community life that gave color and meaning to everyone's existence. When most people retired to the comfort of their homes, a special category of workers began their shift. Night watchmen walked the streets with lanterns gently swinging in their hands, creating moving circles of light that dispelled both real dangers and imaginary fears. Their footsteps echoed rhythmically on the cobblestones, a constant beat that reassured the sleeping residents. In bakeries, work began in the early hours of dawn. Bakers rose when the stars still shone brightly, lighting the ovens that would warm not only the bread, but the entire neighborhood. The golden light escaping through the cracks in the doors was like a beacon of hope, promising that dawn would bring the comforting aroma of fresh bread to the whole community. Midwives kept their lanterns always ready, knowing that life did not wait for the sunrise to come into the world. They walked through the dark streets with sure steps, carrying not only medical instruments, but also words of comfort and skilled hands that guided new souls on their first journey. Their presence was a blessing that transformed darkness into a moment of miracle and hope. Innkeepers never truly slept, always alert to receive tired travelers arriving at any hour of the night. They kept fires burning and rooms warm. Their lanterns were beacons for the lost, their open doors were invitations to rest, and their welcoming voices were the first music travelers heard upon finding shelter. Carters took advantage of the cool night hours to transport heavy goods. Their wagons creaked softly along the roads, illuminated by lanterns that swayed like earthly stars in motion. The sound of horses' hooves on the ground created a hypnotic melody that accompanied the long nocturnal journeys, while the drivers whistled softly to keep their spirits up. Fishermen prepared their nets and boats under the light of the moon and stars. Intimate connoisseurs of nature's rhythms, they knew that certain fish species were more active during the night. Their lanterns reflected on the water like liquid diamonds, creating paths of light that guided them through the dark waters in search of their daily sustenance. The night criers, serenos, walked the streets, announcing the hours with melodious voices that cut through the nocturnal silence. "Midnight and all's well," echoed through closed windows, not only informing the time, but also reassuring residents that everything was fine. It was a service that combined practical utility with psychological comfort, making the darkness less lonely. Night artists, musicians, storytellers, and performers found their moment of greatest inspiration in the night. They performed in taverns, squares, and private homes, using the intimate atmosphere created by limited light to forge deeper connections with their audience. Their voices and instruments filled the void of darkness with beauty and emotion. Mill workers took advantage of the night winds to grind grain. The rhythmic sound of the rotating blades mingled with the whisper of the wind, creating a natural symphony that accompanied the arduous but essential work. The flour produced during these silent hours would become the bread that would feed the community the next day. And so, while most slept peacefully, these guardians of the night kept life functioning with silent dedication, each in their specific role, all united by the common purpose of ensuring that the community continued to thrive even in the darkest hours. They were the anonymous heroes of the night, whose tireless work allowed others to rest soundly, knowing they were protected and cared for. The navigators of antiquity possessed an intimacy with the night sky that few today can imagine. Each star had a name, each constellation told a story, and together they formed a celestial map more reliable than any terrestrial chart. Experienced sailors could determine their exact positions simply by observing the eternal dance of the stars, transforming darkness into a precious ally for their oceanic journeys. Caravans crossing deserts and plains also relied on nocturnal wisdom to find their way. Experienced guides knew not only the stars, but also the night winds, distant sounds, and even the aromas that indicated the proximity of oases or cities. They walked at the front of the group, lanterns in hand, like shepherds leading flocks through the dark immensity. Terrestrial travelers developed a complex network of signs and landmarks that functioned even in total darkness. Specifically stacked stones, trees marked with special symbols, and even the sound of distant bells served as reference points for those who dared to travel at night. It was a navigation system that relied as much on observation as on oral tradition. Inns became beacons of hope for nocturnal travelers. Their lit windows could be seen for miles, promising warm food, clean beds, and welcoming company. Owners kept lanterns lit outside, creating luminous signals that guided the lost through the darkness like earthly stars full of hospitality. Night messengers and couriers developed almost supernatural skills to navigate in the darkness. They knew every stone on the path, every curve of the road, every sound that indicated danger or safety. Their lanterns swung rhythmically as they rode, creating patterns of light that other travelers learned to recognize as signs of safe passage. Riverine vessels used ingenious systems of nocturnal signaling. Bonfires lit at strategic points along the banks indicated safe harbors, dangerous rapids, or resting places. Experienced boatmen knew how to read these signs, as if they were words written in the darkness, navigating safely through waters that seemed completely black to inexperienced eyes. Merchants who traveled at night to avoid the heat of the day developed special communication codes. Lanterns swung in specific ways conveyed messages about road conditions, the presence of bandits, or the availability of supplies. It was a silent language that allowed the exchange of vital information without alerting potential threats hidden in the darkness. Scientific and exploratory expeditions of the time used the night for astronomical observations and precise measurements. Cartographers worked by the light of special lanterns, carefully recording every discovery, every new route, every landmark that could help future travelers. Their maps were works of art that combined scientific precision with aesthetic beauty. Pilgrims traveling to sacred sites often preferred to walk at night, finding in the darkness an opportunity for meditation and prayer. Their torchlit processions created rivers of light winding along the roads, while sacred chants echoed in the night, transforming the physical journey into a profound spiritual experience. And so, the darkness that could have been an insurmountable obstacle transformed into an ally for adventurers and explorers. Through centuries of observation, experience, and tradition, nocturnal travelers developed a special wisdom that allowed them to navigate not only through space, but also through time, connecting with generations of explorers who came before and paving the way for those who would come after. Monasteries and convents gained a special dimension during the nocturnal hours. Monks and nuns rose in the early hours of dawn for matins prayers, their voices uniting in Gregorian chants that echoed through the ancient stones like angels' whispers. The golden light of candles reflected on the colorful stained glass windows, creating kaleidoscopes of faith that danced on the sacred walls. Night vigils were moments of profound spiritual connection. The faithful gathered in churches illuminated only by hundreds of candles, creating atmospheres of contemplation and recollection that fostered deep prayer. The silence was punctuated only by the low murmur of prayers and the gentle crackle of flames, creating a symphony of devotion that lifted hearts to the divine. Night processions transformed entire streets into paths of light and faith. Thousands of candles were carried by devotees who walked slowly, singing sacred hymns that echoed through the ancient stones. It was a spectacle of transcendent beauty that united heaven and earth, creating moments of spiritual communion that deeply marked all participants. Rites of passage gained special significance when performed under the cloak of night. Baptisms by candlelight, weddings celebrated under the stars, and funeral ceremonies illuminated by torches created atmospheres of solemnity and mystery that amplified the spiritual meaning of these crucial moments in human life. Nocturnal pilgrimages were both physical and spiritual journeys. Pilgrims walked for miles in the darkness, carrying lanterns that created small circles of light amidst the dark immensity. It was a living metaphor for the soul's journey in search of the divine, where each step in the darkness represented an act of faith and trust. Spiritual retreats took advantage of the night's quietude for deep contemplative practices. Hermits and mystics found in darkness an environment conducive to meditation and prayer, where the absence of visual distractions allowed for more intense concentration on inner life and the pursuit of union with the sacred. Nighttime religious festivities created moments of communal spiritual joy. Patron saint festivals were celebrated with bonfires, colorful lanterns, and sacred music that extended into the early hours of the morning. It was a way of celebrating faith that combined devotion and joy, creating sacred memories that strengthened the religious identity of communities. Theological studies and the copying of sacred manuscripts often took place during the silent hours of the night. Scribes worked by the light of special candles, carefully copying sacred texts with elaborate calligraphy and colorful illuminations. It was a work that required not only technical skill, but also spiritual devotion, transforming each page into a visual prayer. Apparitions and mystical visions were frequently reported during the nocturnal hours. The special atmosphere created by darkness and the limited light of candles seemed to favor extraordinary spiritual experiences. Saints and mystics reported divine encounters that occurred in the quietude of the night, when the soul was most receptive to the mysteries of the sacred. And so, the night became a sacred time, where darkness was not an absence of light, but the presence of divine mystery. Each whispered prayer, each lit candle, each chanted hymn in the darkness transformed into a bridge between the human and the divine, creating a spiritual dimension of nightlife that nourished souls and strengthened the faith of communities through the centuries. Night has always carried a mix of fascination and apprehension that awakened humanity's most primitive instincts. In dimly lit streets, every shadow could hide both a friend and a danger, creating an atmosphere of constant alertness that sharpened all senses. It was a time that demanded wisdom, courage, and, above all, the protection of a united community. Night watchmen became essential figures for the tranquility of cities. Armed with lanterns, whistles, and staffs, they patrolled the streets on carefully planned routes, their footsteps echoing like the heartbeat of the sleeping city. Their voices calling out the hours cut through the nocturnal silence, reminding everyone that someone was watching over their safety as they slept. Families developed elaborate nocturnal protection rituals. Doors were locked with multiple bolts, windows were protected with decorative grills, and special candles were kept lit throughout the night to ward off both real and imaginary dangers. It was a delicate dance between precaution and paranoia, where security mingled with ancestral traditions. Guard dogs became indispensable companions for families. Trained to distinguish between friends and strangers, they slept with one ear always alert, ready to sound the alarm at the slightest sign of danger. Their barks in the darkness were like primitive sirens that alerted the entire neighborhood, creating a network of community protection based on animal loyalty. Merchant guilds organized collective protection systems for their goods and establishments. Groups of armed men made nocturnal rounds through commercial districts, their lanterns creating patterns of light that deterred thieves and vandals. It was a primitive form of private security that protected not only material possessions, but also the trust necessary for trade to prosper. Nighttime legends and superstitions served as psychological forms of protection. Stories about supernatural creatures that punished wrongdoers circulated through communities, creating a system of social control based on the fear of the unknown. Amulets and talismans were carried as protection against evil forces, offering psychological comfort in times of uncertainty. Primitive alarm systems used bells, drums, and bonfires to communicate dangers across long distances. Watchtowers kept fires burning that could be quickly intensified to signal threats, creating a communication network that allowed for rapid responses to invasions or other dangers. It was a system that depended on the cooperation and constant vigilance of the entire community. Women developed special codes of protection and communication. Discreet signals made with candles in windows indicated whether everything was well or if help was needed. Groups of neighbors organized themselves so that no woman was ever left completely alone during the night, creating mutual support networks that strengthened both security and community bonds. Young people learned early on the rules of nocturnal safety. Never walking alone, always carrying a light source, knowing safe paths, and identifying places of refuge were lessons that could mean the difference between life and death. It was a practical education that combined local knowledge with survival instincts, preparing each generation to navigate safely through the darkness. And so, night became not only a period of rest, but also a constant test of humanity's ability to organize, protect, and care for one another. Every protection system developed, every security ritual created, every act of community vigilance became a thread in the tapestry of civilization, showing that even in the deepest darkness, the light of human solidarity always found a way to shine. Darkness has always been a powerful muse for artists and creators. Poets sat near windows, letting the soft candlelight illuminate not only their pages, but also their imagination. Words flowed like silver rivers in the darkness, capturing the special magic that only night could inspire. It was a time of deep introspection, where the soul found its most authentic voice. Painters discovered in the limited light of candles a completely new way of seeing the world. The dancing shadows created dramatic contrasts that transformed ordinary faces into studies of light and darkness, full of mystery and emotion. It was a technique that required not only skill, but also an intimate understanding of how light and shadow could work together to create beauty. Musicians found in the nocturnal quietude the perfect environment to compose melodies that touched the heart directly. Without the distractions of the day, they could fully concentrate on the sounds emanating from their instruments, creating compositions that captured the melancholic and romantic essence of the night. It was music born from silence and returning to it, creating perfect circles of harmony. Storytellers developed a special art for nocturnal audiences. Their voices became instruments of magic, modulating tones and rhythms to create atmospheres that transported listeners to fantastic worlds. The limited candlelight forced the imagination to work more intensely, creating more vivid mental images than any illustration could provide. Artisans took advantage of the silent hours to work on their most delicate creations. Jewelers polished gems by the light of special lamps, carpenters carved intricate details into furniture, and ceramists molded pieces that seemed to capture the very essence of night in their forms. It was a time of meditative creation, where every movement was deliberate and full of intention. Writers of letters and diaries found in the night the ideal moment to express their most intimate thoughts. Darkness created a sense of privacy and security that encouraged emotional honesty. Words of love, confessions of fear, dreams of the future, everything flowed more easily when the outside world was silent and the only company was the golden light of a candle. Dancers and performers discovered that limited light created unique visual effects. Elongated shadows transformed simple movements into dramatic spectacles, while the flickering light of torches added an almost supernatural dimension to performances. It was an art form that relied on both darkness and light to create its special magic. Philosophers and thinkers used the nocturnal hours for deep contemplations on the nature of existence. External darkness favored internal illumination, allowing for deep dives into the mysteries of life and death, love and loss, time and eternity. It was a natural laboratory for thought, where ideas could germinate and grow without external interference. Architects and urban planners began to consider how their creations would function during the night. They designed spaces that would be beautiful both under sunlight and starlight, creating environments that honored both day and night. It was a holistic approach, that recognized the importance of both periods in human life. And so, night became not only a period of rest, but also a time of intense creation and profound inspiration. Every work of art created by candlelight, every poem written in the darkness, every melody composed in silence became a testament to humanity's ability to find beauty and meaning, even in the darkest hours, proving that creativity, like light, always finds a way to shine. The first experiments with electricity took place in laboratories lit by candles, creating a poetic irony where ancient light gave birth to the light of the future. Scientists worked tirelessly during the nocturnal hours, their discoveries illuminated by the very technology that would soon be replaced. It was a moment of magical transition, where the past and the future met in the golden dance of traditional flames. When the first electric lamps began to shine in the streets of large cities, people's reaction was a mixture of admiration and apprehension. The constant bright light seemed almost supernatural compared to the soft, dancing light of candles. Crowds gathered in the streets to witness this miracle of science, their faces illuminated by a light that never flickered, never went out with the wind. Lamplighters found themselves facing an expiring profession. Men who had dedicated their lives to bringing light to the streets now watched machines doing their work with impersonal efficiency. It was a transformation that touched not only the economy but also the soul of communities, which lost these nocturnal guardians who knew every corner, every resident, every story of the streets they illuminated. Families had to relearn how to live their nights. Electric light allowed for activities that were previously impossible after dark, effectively extending the day and forever changing the natural rhythms of domestic life. Children could study later, adults could work on personal projects, and night ceased to be a period of obligatory retreat to become an extension of daytime possibilities. Artists and writers found that electric light, though practical, did not possess the same inspiring quality as candlelight. Many continued to work by traditional light, claiming that electric light was too harsh, too constant to nurture creativity. It was a romantic resistance that recognized that not every technological change necessarily represented an advancement in all dimensions of human experience. Night industries flourished with the advent of electricity. Factories could operate 24 hours a day, dramatically increasing productivity and forever changing the nature of work. It was the birth of modern industrial society, where night ceased to be a period of universal rest to become just another work shift. Public spaces were completely transformed by electric lighting. Parks, squares, and streets became safe and accessible during the night, creating an urban nightlife that was previously unthinkable. Theaters, restaurants, and entertainment venues could extend their hours, giving rise to the modern nightlife culture we know today. Public safety dramatically improved with constant electric lighting. Crimes that once hid in the darkness were now exposed by the relentless light of electric lamps. It was a victory of civilization over the forces of chaos, but it also represented the loss of a certain intimacy and mystery that darkness provided. Nighttime traditions began to adapt or disappear. Festivals that relied on the beauty of candles and torches lost some of their charm under electric light. Family rituals that revolved around the fireplace and candles had to find new meanings in a world where light was abundant and constant. And so, humanity entered a new era, where night ceased to be a period of limitations to become an infinite extension of daytime possibilities. It was a transformation that brought immeasurable benefits, but it also represented the end of a way of life that had connected humanity to natural rhythms for millennia. Electric light illuminated the world, but it also forever extinguished the special magic that only candlelight could create. As we reach the end of this journey through the nights of the past, we are invited to reflect on what we gained and what we lost in the transition to our electrical age. Life before electricity was not just a matter of different technology. It was a completely distinct way of experiencing time, space, and human relationships. In those times, darkness was not seen as an emptiness to be filled, but as a sacred space that offered unique opportunities for connection, creativity, and contemplation. The limited light of candles and lamps created intimate circles of warmth and communion, that forced people to draw closer physically and emotionally. It was a time when family gathered not out of obligation, but out of practical necessity that transformed into a ritual of love. The reliance on natural and limited artificial light created a rhythm of life that was in harmony with the cycles of nature. People slept when it got dark and woke with the sun, living in tune with the rhythms that had governed human life for millennia. It was an existence that recognized and respected natural limits, finding beauty and meaning within those restrictions. The arrival of electricity brought undeniable benefits: greater safety, increased productivity, expanded educational opportunities, and an improved quality of life in many aspects. But it also disconnected us from something fundamental: the ability to find contentment and joy within limitations, the ability to create intimacy through shared necessity, and the wisdom of living in harmony with natural rhythms. Today, in our era of abundant and constant light, we can learn from our ancestors about the importance of creating moments of voluntary darkness. Perhaps it's time to rediscover the pleasure of a candlelight meal, the intimacy of a conversation by the fireplace, or the magic of storytelling in a room illuminated only by the golden glow of a lamp. True wisdom lies not in rejecting progress, but in integrating the best of the past with the possibilities of the present. We can use our modern technology to create moments of ancestral simplicity, enjoying the safety and convenience of electricity while occasionally choosing the intimacy and magic of limited light. May this journey through the nights of the past inspire us to value both light and darkness, both connection and solitude, both progress and tradition. May we find ways to honor the wisdom of our ancestors while embracing the possibilities of our future. And may, by turning off the electric lights and lighting a simple candle, we for a few moments return to that magical time when night was not an obstacle to be overcome, but an invitation to discover the light that has always shone within us. May your dreams be illuminated by the wisdom of the past and the hope of the future, finding in darkness not the end of light, but the beginning of a new way of seeing